Google wants 200, baby.
You ready to get back to the trading action?
You aim, you shoot, and make money. It's going to be a great day. You guys know where you're at.
All right, everyone, welcome to the show. So we're doing a couple things here. So we got a giveaway going on. I'm just looking over to get news on exactly how we'll do that. We're going to be joined with my buddy Steve. We just heard a little beep, so that's probably him popping in here. Mitch is going to be away today, but it will be me and Steve kind of hanging out and doing some things. So what I think we're going to try to do first is to just pop over and go and do the alert now. So let's go through and see if that works. So if this works, you'll just be over on the Fiverr stream for just a quick second, and then you'll come back here once the giveaway is done. So let's try this here. I see, but I do not hear. So I don't know. This. Nope, it's not that. So I see it there, but I don't hear anything. So we'll wait until our CEO gets there anyway to do the winners. I just need to see if this is working here. Screen share, but the audio is not working. Yes, did have a good long weekend. Got a lot of work done on a lot of systems, things that I'm trying to test, things that I'm trying to do as well. So going to be some cool stuff coming up, right? That's what I do on my downtime. So I try to always work on individual systems. So I'm trying to remove this again. You have to look at my face just for real quick and see if that goes through here. So we'll be watching again. I'll read the names as they come through as well. So if you guys missed it, essentially what we did is we did this stocks versus Forex little stream, little fun kind of paper trading game where we each had $600,000 accounts and tried to figure out who could scalp the best for a little bit. They cheated, so they won. That's what I'll say anyway. And and then we're going to give away some accounts. So there is the CEO now. Let's go and let's try to put this back on again. See if this helps.
Texture of it's on until someone tells me. Match trader.
Match trader?
Yeah, the Forex to stocks.
Okay, but
So that's not working. So maybe Michael can just give me the names. While we wait for technical problems, let's get over to the market. Let's talk a little bit about the market while we're waiting for this stuff to get sorted. Nice little turnaround yesterday after pretty much an entire bleed of the day. This bleeding all day long. Made it back a lot in the afternoon. Let me know what you guys think of the dark charts versus light charts. I know it's like a thing. So, but I like them as well. I can't share audio. Then right. So we, sold off most of the morning. I think when we left you guys, we were kind of about here. Sold off a little bit more and then had a bit of a rally late into the day. And then a bounce this day, or so far this morning as well, which puts us actually right near yesterday's high. So if we're going to continue to mess around inside this bar, again, that's been my bet that we're going to do for a long time. So it's frustrating, but if we know that's what's going to happen or potentially what could happen, then we can play accordingly. So I've got some names here that I have on watch, things that I'm going to watch, but we'll go over that in just a little bit here. So I'm going to try to add this feed over one more time, and then if it doesn't work, then we'll just read you guys the names when I get them. So Yeah. So I don't hear that. I don't think you guys probably hear that either.
The way I entered the company, I learned it from the product side. Like I try
So,
to navigate things. In terms of the trading,
all right. So we're just gonna pop over here and we'll just keep going until again they'll give us the names and we will read them out from there. So I'm gonna bring in buddy Steve here. You heard it? If I do this, do you guys hear it? I'll wait to hear if I get any feedback there. Oh, okay. Well then I will be quiet while you guys listen. I don't hear it, so I'll go over to the stream.
the live problem.
Pop back in here and put in. Bring in my buddy Steve. I don't know why you're not showing up. Everything is. Oh, there we go. Here you are. Here you are, bud. Just wrong scene. How's it going? So no, it looks like there's some problems, but yeah, we had some winners. We'll read them out when we get access to those names. But yeah, so wild day in the market yesterday. How did you fare? I guess since we seen you last, which was last week, and especially yesterday. Yesterday seemed to be the craziest day out there in a while, anyway.
Yeah, it was a spicy one. So I actually was a little bit long into the weekend. I was kind of betting on just a quiet, easy Easter weekend without any crazy headlines. I shifted tune pretty quickly in the day. Basically, at open, I kind of ate the loss on the longs and went decently short. So I wish I caught the exact bottom there. I basically was buying some hedges on the way down. I was thinking we'd have a bounce. Wasn't sure exactly where. Seems like on the hourly NQ chart, it was about the 50% pullback of the little range we've had. So that's where it seemed like we ended up finding buyers. So I'm short using SOXS and SQQQ. I am long some master, or what is it, MicroStrategy? I always call it master. MSTR.
It's just strategy now because he changed his name to be hip and cool, like the cool kids out there.
Right. I can't keep up. I'm not very hip, Michael, but I do like the chart. So I think that with the dollar dying as much as it is, Bitcoin's not a bad place to be to express a long idea. So that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it.
Do you know where it's really not a bad place to be? Speaking of crypto, the one crypto, the only crypto that matters right now, that's the fart coin. Look at that nice little breakout of a range. I'm now over a double, over 100% on my fart coin position that I got in in the 50s right here. So yeah, but you're right. If you take a look at Bitcoin, nice little breakout yesterday, even with the market down as bad as it was. We had a nice little continuation there, and then a move, and then today we're continuing as well. So market was down yesterday, Bitcoin was up, market's up today, and Bitcoin's also up. So that to me is really interesting because I talked about this yesterday, that has for a long time, for seemingly ever, it's just been a risk asset. So if the Nasdaq's going up, then crypto's, Bitcoin's probably going up more. And if the Nasdaq's going down, then crypto's going down more. But it seems like,
right?
that correlation could be breaking.
That's what it seems to me. And I wonder if gold is a little bit of a factor too. I think the biggest driver is just the weak dollar. But I'd be wondering if maybe we see some tiring out in gold after this crazy rally and some of that getting shifted into Bitcoin. Maybe not. But For somebody's buying. I don't know who it is, but something's making it go up.
That was a lot of my theory. Yes, the dollar is definitely going to contribute, right? There's just no way around that. So the dollar will contribute to the sell in Bitcoin, but the dollar, if you go to DXY, wasn't crazy bad yesterday. It was a bit bad, but again, as we said, the dollar's moving up today.
Yeah.
And then crypto is still moving up today. So yes, I think it's part of it, but yeah, my theory was the same as yours, in which again, bonds aren't working, right?
Yeah.
Can't put your money in bonds. The stock market, again, still incredibly volatile. So what do? Right. And I think a lot of people, right, they're looking for that place to put their money. And right, gold was obviously the best place to put it in. But if you miss that, right, are you gonna be the one who's allocating a bunch of your portfolio now? I don't think
Not
so,
me.
right? I think it's one of those things a little bit too messy. I'm going to just turn off my screen here for a second. I always have this problem in the morning if my computer does anything weird, because I use my phone as my webcam, and when I want to log into my Interactive Brokers account, I need to use my phone to authenticate. So
Gotcha.
back. But yeah, so I think that's a lot what's going on with Bitcoin. But it also means, right, again, like you mentioned, MSTR, that's looking well. If you want to go a double leverage Ponzi scheme, if you're crazy, you can go MSTX. This thing is nuts. If it ever gets back to even these highs right here, that's a 10x. Just insanity.
Yeah, I think I chose MSTU, which I think is the exact same thing. If I recall, it's just the 2x long.
Yeah. So these are that's
Basically.
even it's even kind of cheaper. You can go from 6 to 20. So it's just wild ways to play this. A lot of people, they keep trying to go back to the Maras and riots and all that in the world. I just don't think that that's the ticket, because they're degrading assets. They're going to have some correlation still, but it's just not going to be a lot. It's one
kind
of
of
those
like trading some of these lower quality gold miners. It's like, yeah, in theory the torque's there, but in reality there's a lot of sell pressure on these assets, and every time they pop, there's somebody waiting to get out. It was just a bag holder for the last 6 months.
Right. And it's, do you want to own Bitcoin, right? Or do you want to own Bitcoin minus the money that they're burning each and every quarter to try to mine Bitcoin?
Right.
And it doesn't make sense to then go to something that's burning money. It's why I always say, again, Monster makes sense. Right? Coinbase, I think, is a good one. And then right here, and then Robinhood is another one, and then eventually, once the insanity stops, Webull. So I think Webull is kind of just like the same market as Robinhood, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Made no sense at 80, maybe 20, right? Is a little bit better, and again, we'll have that crypto exposure, because again, it's a lot of that same market. So all right, I've been told to try one more time here with the adding the feed. So let's give this one solid shot here. I apologize for the interruptions. Remove. They'll come back to us. They'll tell us what those are. So no sense interrupting everybody's pre-market prep for that. Now, a couple things that I'm just watching right off the open. Of course, there was a fair amount of earnings last time. Verizon, of all things, is going to be on the list today because the algo, right? This is the exact kind of pattern that I look for. This was earnings before the market opened, and I'm not going to know what it was, but it was bad. So it continues to kind of push and move lower here. And so I'm looking for a kind of a fade or a mean revision or something after that. And then if we start going through some more of the list here, we can take a look at where is my alerts here. A lot of these defense names. So there must have been some news kind of from the defense space because some of these are moving. Some of these are earnings, right? So earnings was today, pre-market. You can see a lot of these like NOC, RTX, LMT, right? Even it's one of those that, yes, a lot of them had earnings, but because so many of them had earnings that even if your defense stock didn't have earnings, it's going to move just because everyone, right? The whole sector always generally moves together. So KTOS is actually something that I really like the long-term chart on, like the weekly chart. So I'm waiting for a break of these prior highs in order to get involved. This is one's really interesting to me. See how important this $30 area has been. It went all the way to 2 and then back to 30 again. So it's been a heck of a range. So if it ever gets through that and then pushes, that's really interesting to me. We're getting a little bit there in the pre-market, but I want to see like 34 or so go to get involved there. But yeah, pick your favorite defensive name. I have a couple of those on watch when it comes to NOC and I think RTX. China is doing well. If you look at BABA, for example, a nice little gap up here on BABA through some recent noise and getting potentially back into this zone, this 120. It's the gap, but then it was also resistance back here and here and here. So a lot of areas going on there when it comes to BABA that we need to keep a look at. And we need to, above this anchored VWAP, which I think is important, but China as a whole seems to be getting a little bit of a lift. It must just be more talks about things are happening.
It's interesting,
Yes,
right? I mean, considering they're the main target for our tariffs, they're handling it surprisingly well. I think that there's a lot of money kind of looking for other places besides U.S. equities, and even if China seems to be pressured, they have a lot of levers to pull on their own, to kind of make it work, or at least the market's betting on that, it seems. So we'll see how it goes. I like a lot of opportunities in Latin America too. I think like Colombia, Argentina, Brazil all look pretty good to me. Chile.
Yeah, a lot of places around the world are looking great. I always like this one, the ACWX. So this is basically the rest of the world. So you take the US out, you combine the rest of the world. That's this particular ETF, and you can see relatively very strong, right? Already above where the whole Liberation Day craziness has happened. So now, right, the rest of the world minus the US has been a bit of a dog for a long period of time, but showing some relative strength now. So that's something we definitely need to keep an eye on just to see if that continues. Other than that, some like First Solar, it's kind of interesting. Nice little gap up here on First Solar. This one is, I mean, if you are going to play a solar play, it's an interesting chart where it's got a pretty significant low there at 132. So if that can kind of break back through, that could be like a whoopsie or a rug, liquidity grab, bear flag, bull flag, whatever you want to call it. Under support, back right up through. That'd be one to watch. But again, the solar industry as a whole just isn't working. So, so the winners are being announced over on the Fivers channel. I've asked them just to make me a little list of the people who have won, and then we will pop over here. We're supposed to be able to share that stream on this stream, but the audio was being a bit weird. So we're just gonna take a look at the market and go through it. Last but not least, this one, a bit of a round trip. So I'll see if it gets going again, maybe back through VWAP later. SLI, which is a lithium play, had some news about some sort of joint venture or something like that for more lithium. Big pop today from 140 to 170, but in the pre-market as high as nearly $3, so almost a double there before starting to pull back a little bit. So if we can get going, right, maybe there's some people who maybe it's one of those pullbacks where people are like, that's interesting. We'll go from there. When is Tesla earnings? Yes, post-market, you're right. So after hours tonight. So personally, I avoid anything that's reporting earnings maybe in the next day or so, simply because you generally just get a bunch of flop, junk type action. Uh, so this one's been pushing up a little bit on the open, but so is the S&P 500. Right, so we're getting a little bit of a push there as well. So I think after hours tonight was way more interesting. Let me go to earnings hub.
Yeah.
Yeah, after hours tonight was way more interesting than before hours. Yeah, we have Tesla, ISRG, SAP, Enphase, COF, a bunch of things happening after the close today, and not nearly as much other than those defensive names before the open.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Tesla will be definitely interesting and maybe kind of give us some insight into the path forward for some of these higher risk assets. Maybe not the perfect bellwether for big tech earnings, but I do think that there will be something to be gleaned by if it does pop, how fast that sells off or doesn't. If the move can stick, see what people's risk appetite is for the little bit more out there growth plays. I'd love to short it, but I'm scared now. I think I might have missed that a few days ago.
I don't know. And again, I'm just one of these a bit contrarian in this where I'm like, okay, what bad news is Tesla going to say that we don't already know? Right.
Right.
Are they going to say that, right, Elon's hurting the brand? Yeah, no duh. Right.
That.
So that's priced in. Right.
Yeah.
Are they going to say that, sales are probably shrinking a bit? It's like, yeah, of course. Right. So I'm just one of those same reason I got so involved in China at the beginning of the year after it had, that last kind of tank. I'm like, okay, so everybody thinks Trump will be bad for China, even though last time we had Trump, he was great for China. And this is all baked in, like, yes, their housing market sucks, and yes, the economic slowdowns and all this kind of stuff. We know all this. But if you know it, it's priced into the stock. So it's like when news gets just and opinions get so incredibly bad, that's where I'm interested in. And also something like Nike. Like, gotta, you know what I mean? It's from what, 170 down to 50? The awful news has to be priced in at this point, right? Just absolutely has to be priced in. So at some point, I think this might be actually one of the best buys in the market, just because as soon as these tariffs go away, which they will at some point, no one knows when, but they will at some point, you got to imagine this thing is up 50% from that low. And what an insane trade. And absolutely, you could probably just lean against these lows right here.
Yeah, good risk reward, even if you're wrong. I mean, it seems like I do think it's worth noting that I'm sure you saw the inflows on all of these types of names affected by a potential Vietnam deal towards the end of yesterday. They kind of led the way up. Yeah, so I might be a little bit of a contrarian here, but I think the willingness for the market to kind of pump off of pretty speculative potential maybe type deals, either somebody knows something, or I think the market may be getting a little ahead of its skis on this up move, and it could just continue right on back down, because I don't know, the daily chart does not look good to me on SPY. Let's just say, SPY or Qs, SOXX, and any of the big boys. It feels pretty precarious to me. But you got to respect a move like yesterday off the lows. So I got to respect the down. I got to respect the up. I got to see what follows through, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think it's one of those things where everybody's kind of in the same boat and saying as soon as these tariffs go away, it's all sunshine and puppies after that. So we just need, like, everyone's like very trigger happy to be one of the first in when the news happens. So I think there'll be a lot of that, of like the would they, won't they? Oh, there's going to be a thing. Let's all buy stocks. And then, okay, it's not going to happen. Let's sell them back down. I think that volatility is going to really continue because, as soon as the tariffs go, then the market rips and everyone's kind of just having that FOMO of, I want to make sure that I'm involved in that. And for me, that's one of the biggest things out there. I think it's a dangerous game because you're right. If they have everything's going to be great, and then it's not, then you end up having that I'm going to get involved, and then I'm going to get steamrolled. I'm going to get involved. I'm going to get steamrolled, and you get kind of chopped up in the meantime. So
classic bear market rally things. So I guess where my mind goes, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I know we got a few minutes before market open. So say we do get a rollback of the exorbitant, over the top, quote unquote, reciprocal tariffs. Do you think it is all sunshine and roses? I'm sure we'll rip off of it, but will that move stick? That's what I'm really not sure of, and I probably will be fading what I would believe is consensus of that can rip us, back to mid 500s or so.
If all tariffs go away, yeah, I think the market rips, and not even so much for the tariffs, but also because it allows JPOW to continue to get back to cutting rates, which again, at the end of the day, all that matters is what the Fed does. Right now, he is stuck where he cannot raise rates or lower rates because, right, we talked about this a lot, where he's got a slowing economy on one side and inflation on the other, and either of those things, they have a tool for them. They don't have a tool to deal with both. So I think more than the rates, or more than the tariffs, it will be okay if everything goes back to normal. The market probably pops right back up, and then JPOW can go, okay, we can start. If the economy slows, I now have tools that I can deal with at my exposure. Where right now, I don't have anything. I don't have anything to do. Still liking the dust setup. I don't really see too much in there right now. That was a great trade yesterday.
I got backed off on my oh wow, it did do pretty well. I have a tiny position, and I think I stopped out of it, honestly. So that's I would not be surprised to see that rip as soon as it got me. But I might take another stab at it eventually. We'll take a look. It could be.
I just don't see. I like it, and again, this is just for those who don't know. This is just kind of a way to try to fade the gold top, and doing it again from an intraday basis or like a short-term swing. The one thing, again, you don't want to do, because commodities just do this, is really get dogmatic about fading these moves, because commodities can go way higher and faster. But my idea, just like we talked about, the gold miners are going to do worse than the underlying commodity because they have to have all these expenses of getting the commodity out of the ground. So this dust, again, this goes higher when gold miners go lower. And yeah, that was the idea yesterday, to this fade down. And when it kind of came back through VWAP yesterday, at this point right here, I bought some. And again, for me, it's a VWAP to VWAP move. So I was out right here, just kind of took the profits and moved on. I may watch for the same thing, but if we get like a little dip off the open and then back through VWAP, maybe. It's not on the list right now, but it's definitely something that I'm watching, just because I like this overall setup of, if gold is going to pull back at some point, which we know it will, this I think is going to be one of the best beneficiaries of. But again, you got to be, because gold can go way higher than anybody thinks that it can. You just have to be much more dogmatic about, I'm taking a trade. It's an intraday trade. If I can get a bunch of good money off it, then maybe I'll hold some. But just shorting a commodity because it went up too much is there's been a lot of horror stories written about that already. So that's my idea behind that. So GDXD, I haven't even heard of that one. GDXD.
Yeah, I know, it was a new one for me too.
3 times leverage. Ooh, that's a new one. Quindy doesn't seem that awful either. I didn't even know what that guy.
Yeah, there's some choices. There's an ETF for everything nowadays.
And this Verizon, I got this in my personal brokerage account, because it's automated. I heard the British guy yell, and then away they go. But yeah, the trade the pool account, I certainly missed that one. I just moved a little too fast. So looking here right off the open, we are kind of stuck right in the middle of the range. For those asking for the winners, I have asked, and I will ask again very soon. I'm just waiting for someone to tell me so I can tell you guys. But yeah, so we've been pushing all morning. So this high is actually the pre-market high, as well as just the regular trading hours high right now. So we'll watch for just that first little bit here. Didn't even check the economic calendar. I don't think there's too much. Oh, there's a lot of Feds yapping today. Yeah, Richmond manufacturing, who cares about that? But we've got a bunch of Fed jerks, but they're well in the afternoon, so I'm not too worried about those.
Interesting little bloody nose off 520 there on SPY. See where we can stabilize.
XPEV, kind of an interesting one here as well. And there goes, yeah, Verizon just being a beast. Of course it is, right?
Beautiful.
That's, again, I'm glad that I have it in my personal account, but I wish I had it in the trade the pool account as well.
Heard that. Okay, Bitcoin a little bit relative strength here. SPY just seems to be getting snapped up under 520. Not a terrible look.
Yeah, it came down, tagged VWAP pretty much to the tick, and some buyers came in there. Now we saw some, kind of buy algorithm shenanigans in the morning as well, and that didn't end up, obviously didn't end up working. So we need to see. Oh yeah, no, just reversing, might go back through high. Let's move on this chart here as well, so I can keep an eye on the most important asset in the market, which is my Farcoin position.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, just some sideways chop, a little bit of digestion of the gap, right? We are up 1% on the market in the SPY, and then we're up 1.5 to 1.25 to 1.5 on the Qs. So we just makes sense that we get a little bit of digestion here while we wait for that to resolve itself in one direction. VZ, again, for my personal account, this is great, but for trade the pool, this is going to be the miss of the day. It's pretty much retraced the entire gap already to the 2-day VWAP. So I heard the British man yell that I'm out of that position now. So that was just a nice little opening drive to potentially trade there.
Beautiful. And the system, it's working. Gotta love it.
Yeah, now it's time. It's time for the next system, right? Always can never rest on being done, because eventually the system won't work, right? So dust is kind of creeping up, so I may actually do that JDXD at this point, which I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know about that at all. I didn't know that was a 3x leverage. So now we need a 5x leverage and a 10x leverage, and let's just go crazy with it.
Did you say that's GDXD?
GDXG or D. Sorry, that was the 3 times leveraged inverse gold miners. So if you want to short some gold miners, that was a viewer brought that up, and I had never heard of it before. Again, I always just traded dust. So that could be a good way. It's only $2, right? Could be a way to grab a lot of exposure if you want to take a shot on gold to the short side. You just don't really see an exact setup right now. So I'd like to see some sort of basing action or pullback or some sort of flag or something to get involved in.
Yeah, no doubt. We got Bitcoin leading the way up here still with a little bit of pullback in SPY. Interesting. I wonder if we see that trend continue with sideways down on SPY, upwards on Bitcoin.
I'm taking this XPEV here. You can see the blue arrow trigger as the market open. Just trying to see if we can get a little bit, again, of a fade and gaps. It's what I do. At least I have with this strategy. It's what I do. KMI, everything coming through here after the first 5 minutes. So BABA doing the same thing. I'm not going to take XPEV and BABA at the same time just because they'll probably work together. And then 3M of all things is triggering into that particular strategy.
Interesting.
So I'm probably going to
pop on a lot of defensives, I've noticed. A lot of those recession plays, I suppose.
Right, so I got some plays. Got some plays on my XPEV and my 3M. KMI was one as well. I don't know why though. I should get rid of that. That didn't do enough pre-market volume for me to be interested.
I
Let's
forgot.
talk
Is that
about
the
Nvidia
oil
boom.
infrastructure play?
KMI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always forget what they do.
Again, just looking to fade gaps a little bit there.
Gotcha.
And yeah, we have Nvidia gapping up and selling off, but the whole market's doing that, right? So
yeah,
it makes sense that the biggest names in there are leaking a little bit here. But so far, right, it's not like it's a bad sell-off. We're nowhere near pre-market low. We're definitely nowhere near post-market low. Again, we're just kind of flirting with VWAP. So
yeah, it seems to be trying to stabilize at the very least. Seen a little push and pull. Got that big 520 level, so makes sense if it needs some time to digest in cash session.
Yeah, for sure, because it's been such a big day. So let's talk about Roblox. Yeah, little opening drive there.
It's doing something. It's just drifting on up.
It's slow grind higher here for sure.
And it loves to do that. I've noticed, just drift up, grind up, and then big move down. But then it seems like it just keeps getting bought up again. So,
well, it's again this anchored VWAP from the IPO has been very important for this name, right? Back here and then again back here. So that'd be a good place to watch. So.
Okay, strong move on SPY there. That looks real. Oof.
Let's take a look here. So yeah, continuing to hold VWAP, hold back into VWAP again. Right, if you go to a 1 minute chart, it might be a little bit clearer, but right, this blue line here is VWAP, pulled into it the first minute, bounce, pulled into it again, bounce. Now it's flirting with the pre-market high. And just like I say when it's down at a pre-market low, right? The next kind of question is, do we break this pre-market high and then just reverse lower, or do we break this pre-market high and that's just off to the races today?
Right.
In my overall, I've been saying for a long time, well, pretty much since this bar happened and we had the gap down the next day, I think we are stuck within the shadow of this, back off bar for the foreseeable future until there's a deal announced or something. I think we're living inside this range and then maybe even inside this range until there's a deal announced or we start to get more and more data points and more everything that there won't be a deal, right?
That makes sense.
We're in limbo. It's just crazy because it's an incredibly volatile limbo, right? At 3%, at one point we were down 4% yesterday. That seems like it should be a big deal, but when you just zoom out on the daily chart, it's nothing.
Because just testing the equilibrium of that same candle, the 50% mark. So nothing too alarming.
The mother bar, the technicians will call it sometimes, right? You're stuck inside you're stuck next to your mother in the mother bar until something reverses in some type of way, which again I'm betting is going to happen if and when there's some sort of deal announced. Until then, who knows? But through that pre-market high, just kind of barely. So we'll see again if this is a look above and fail, or if this is going to be a great little push and continuation from there. So I think the next 5 minutes or so,
100%, but MSTR looks like it's trying to squeeze here. So I'm hanging out in this one here. I think it's going to be testing 335 is my range equilibrium level that I want to really gauge price action at, that 50% fib. So I think it's got a date with there. I'm a little less convinced that SPY wants to push higher immediately here, but hey, maybe it does. And hey, maybe strategy's fading on me here too. We'll see. I got some positions in both directions, and I'm just kind of trying to bet on Bitcoin outperforming in general.
Yeah. Well, we have the gap here, right? So the question is, do we want to kind of come close that gap? Is that what we're going to do? Or if we break yesterday's high, which is right here at 522, 521.75. We break that, do we fill the gap? And that's at 526 again. These numbers, I just cannot stress how crazy these numbers are, right? It's these are not normal numbers to say, oh yeah, the SPY, probably it could move 10, 15 points today, and that would just fill a little gap that it had. Yeah, like these are just bonkers numbers. But it could, right? We're getting close to, again, just 1 point away from yesterday's high. And then through that could be a little bit of gap fill. So that could just give a lift to everything that we're seeing. I wanted to look. No, we're not seeing. Oh, we are seeing a little bit of relative outperformance of small caps. That was my biggest takeaway from yesterday, is how well both small caps and micro caps did yesterday, considering small caps and micro caps have been junk for the longest time. This, if you go to this, like, look at this. This is the 2020 highs. We really never got back above that, and we've just been stuck in this range. And some of this again makes sense. You kick out your best players if you're the small cap indice, right? As soon as a company gets really good, you kick them out, which is the exact opposite of what we want to do as traders. We want to hold on to our best one and kick out our worst one. But you'd expect some sort of movement, and then we're just not seeing that currently. So now that we're seeing a little bit of a pop today, that's interesting. And again, IWC, there's no liquidity in this. This is the micro cap index. But closing prices are still interesting in IWC. Qs continue, SPYs continuing here. Right? Everything's trying to push up. Again, if it give us another couple of minutes here, and I'll kind of put the liquidity grab off the table and just say this is probably just a breakout. Yeah, it's not good for my two shorts. So
one name to keep an eye on mid to long term is TEM. That looks really, really strong to me. I think they got some kind of upgrade news, and yeah, boom, look at that.
Woo. Oh, that's that Nancy Pelosi medical AI or something? Is that
something like that? I know it's a Pelosi AI play. I'm not sure many more details, but I liked the chart a lot after that gap fill, nice falling wedge action, and it was responding better than a lot of the Kathy names. So that's my pick to play the Kathy basket.
Well, if
I gave you the fake out breakout last week. Sorry, what was that?
I said if the greatest investor of all time, Nancy Pelosi, is interested, then yeah, we can go from there.
MSTR is actually through range equilibrium and still pushing. That's very impressive to me. I think it may be doing the big squeeze thing. So yeah, I'm sitting in my MSTU up a nice like 8 or 9% today. I think. What is it? 12% on the MSTU and cooking. Impressive. Wow. No chill.
MSTR. Is that what's a bit of a rip there. Right, Bitcoin continuing. It's just looking absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
there as well. So
I picked my fighter, right? I'm just letting the trade kind of work out now because I have hedges on too. So look at it, that go. Woof. Up another half.
I'm just glad. Yeah, glad we have that option now. Right? Yeah. That's the biggest thing. Before we didn't, as someone, and it's gotten to the point too where I've pulled most of my money except my figure fart coin position off exchange just because I don't need to. It's just more worthwhile for me to have all my money in my brokerage account, because then for the long periods of time where crypto is not doing anything, then I can I don't have to do anything. I can just wait to play other things, right?
No, I'm
I
with you.
have been coming up with some crypto systems, however, which make me move it back because as I go through and I see that it like wants me to buy Boink and things like that. So, that becomes interesting. And yeah, that's what we're talking about here is Bitcoin is finally decoupling. And that was the main thing that I think really stood out to everybody yesterday is that we had Bitcoin all yesterday just rallying. And then we had the complete opposite where we had the SPY just kind of selling all day. So just showing again, I think, and Steve agrees here, it's just one of those, where do we put our money, right?
Yeah,
It is,
absolutely.
people are looking, they're saying, I gotta put my money somewhere. Gold's overextended, bonds suck, right? Stock market sucks. Where do I put some cash? And we see that happening in there now. I still worry about the Ponzi scheme, which is MSTR. It's without a doubt a Ponzi scheme, and it without a doubt will blow up at some point. That doesn't mean it can't double from here and then blow up a little later.
Yeah,
So,
kind of my working thesis there is that Saylor was getting down to his cost basis. So I don't think that's a guy who likes to go red. I don't know. So, to defend his assets and make sure he doesn't have to sell them off at a loss if he's ever going to pump it. I'm not saying he's necessarily moving the whole Bitcoin market on his own, but if that's the narrative, it might stick for a little bit. Pretty
the other
impressive
thing
move.
that an argument that I heard that was really interesting to me when I was talking about these things is saying, because again, for those who don't know, what Michael Saylor's whole thing is now is, why don't I issue debt and then use that debt to buy more Bitcoin? And if Bitcoin ever goes down, I will issue more debt and I will use that debt to buy more Bitcoin. And it's just like the definition of a Ponzi scheme, right? I will borrow from this person and then buy this thing and then just keep doing that. And eventually, it could implode. Most likely will implode. But the counter argument I got there was, yes, but you got to also keep in mind the people that are he's borrowing money from have enough money to essentially prop up. Right? If he goes into Goldman Sachs options, goes, all that convertible debt you sold me, it's about to get defaulted on. But maybe you take a couple $1 billion, you slap the ask there on the Bitcoin price, you get things moving again, and all of a sudden I don't have to default on that debt. So it's right if you get into bed with the right fellows, which works while Bitcoin's still relatively small. I think like $1.5 trillion is the entire market cap of Bitcoin. And for reference, like Nvidia's 3 and Apple's 3. So, right, the entire Bitcoin market is one half of Apple or Nvidia, and Nvidia got cut in half, and no one really cared. So, right, there's relatively small. Bitcoin could go to zero, and really in the long run, no one would care.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Sorry, I was just checking. I got an alert on hood flow on the May 16th, 43.5. I'm going to let the chart cool off and consolidate. Premiums are running hot right now, but something I'm going to keep an eye on.
Well, and that's right. That's another. I like Robinhood as a Bitcoin play for people that are interested in getting involved in Bitcoin, because it's going to move with that. It's going to move with crypto. But at the same point, it just kind of makes money. So it's like we talked about before. Do you want to hang out with the miners that you're getting exposure to Bitcoin, but they're losing money over time? Or do you want to hang out with Robinhood where it gets exposure to Bitcoin, but it makes money over time? Right? Same with Coinbase.
Yeah, I was going to say Coinbase, I think, is looking a little bit more correlated with Bitcoin and may have more room to go up. Although Hood's probably just a stronger chart. So either way, right?
Yes. So they have, right? So it's like if you go to Mara and you look at their last earnings here, they made a little bit, but most often they lose money over time. So it's like, do you want to hang out with this thing that eventually it's going to have to sell stock to retail in order to raise its money, where it's losing money over time? Or right, you just go to something like Coinbase, where while you're sitting to wait, you have a company that makes money. There's no world in which Bitcoin goes to 300,000-400,000 and Coinbase doesn't double or triple as well. But there is a world where Bitcoin does nothing and Coinbase still does okay because people are trading degen type, right? Pepe fart. What was the big one on StockTwits right now is the Elon Trump fart 5,000.
Oh yes, that's a blue chip, I heard.
Yeah, it's that Zach Morris guy.
Oh, what a guy! What a guy! What a grifter! But hey, I guess if it works, it works. What can you say?
Yeah, he skirted jail, so
must be a good guy.
He didn't go to jail that one time. He probably definitely should have gone to jail. So
yeah, and that was with Gensler hit the head, right? So now I think there's no hope. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. If he didn't get locked up, right? Because there was all of these logs from this group basically talking about how they were pumping dumping their people, and right. So the evidence
Atlas,
was
right?
Huge. Yeah.
There was
like
crazy
4 or 5 of them that they were all just, and they were laughing at their community, just saying, "Look, these idiots following us." And if that didn't get them, then why not make meme coins? The president made a meme coin, so it can't be illegal.
Why not you? Yeah, I mean, lead by example. So we are seeing a little bit of a bloody nose here. What level is this on SPY? Looks like we could not clear the pre-market highs of yesterday, or very close to that, and little bit of a reversal there. We'll see if it sticks. If this was just a liquidity rate up, it seems like a pretty real move. So I wouldn't be surprised to come back a little, hold that pre-market swing low, and then potentially go again. Let's see what VWAP does. But I did take some profit on my MSTU just because it's like a bottle rocket. I don't trust it not to drop 5% before continuing where it's going.
I just shorted this BABA right here.
Okay.
You can see the second blue arrow, and that's just because, right? Well, again, what we were talking about in the market. So if the market's going to continue this fade, BABA is going to be good. If the market doesn't, then right, it's fine. It's time to get out. But and just putting on positions as the system yells at me to put on positions. And I'm hearing the British man is actually doing a pretty good job because he's like screaming at me to take these trades. So it wakes me up.
There's worse accents to get screamed at in, Yeah. All right, let's see what we do here.
Yeah, so I think the real question here on the SPY is this a pullback, right? VWAP and this kind of pre-market high are right at the same level, which is 520.20. If we get there, is that just a retest of the breakout and we dig in and move higher? If we break through those, and that again could just been kind of a bit of a liquidity kind of fade. So
yeah, still looks relatively constructive to me. It's a little bit of a yeehaw up and down here, so I wanna be open to the possibility of some retrace here. I mean, I am still bearish, even if Trump does roll back all the reciprocal tariffs. I doubt he's going to roll back the 10%ers at the same time, and that still is kind of enough for me to. I mean, I was bearish before the tariff news, so that just kind of adds to my longer term. Probably need to dig a little deeper. I think we probably need to retest lows on SPY, but I'm open to anything in this market, right? Trump could really start pumping things if he if he finally cared, about what the market was doing.
That's why I very much try to never have an opinion and never have a bias, and just what's the price action doing? Because you're right, it could be one of those. It's the same with like the Fed watchers. It's like, okay, unemployment was bad, but it's good that unemployment is bad, because then it means that they get to raise and it's like the bad news good news, or bad news bad news, or good news bad news, and I'm just like, okay,
so much easier to just play the charts, crowdsource all that from people who are more in the loop than us.
Yep, that was the guy who invented candlesticks like 250 years ago. That's what he figured out. As opposed to trying to predict the weather, it's way easier to predict human emotions, right? So
yeah,
big investors want to get more Bitcoin. Would it be good for them to temporarily tank? Yeah, they could definitely do it. The question is, right, those big investors are probably also the people lending him money. So it means they wouldn't get that money back. And big guys, again, if they really cared about Bitcoin, one of those things, like, it's the cool thing to say, right? You got a Bitcoin focused president, and that obviously was just to get elected and things like that. And so it's cool to say they're big on crypto, but it's a $1 trillion asset. It's near nothing. It's a fart in the wind kind of thing. If they really, really wanted to care about Bitcoin, then Bitcoin would be worth double or triple what it is right now, right?
Yeah.
Again, Nvidia is worth double all of Bitcoin, right? So it's just such a microscopic kind of asset. I think the gold market is in the $20 trillion area. So, right, and it's moving more. So people care way more about gold than they do about Bitcoin. So, yeah, that kind of shenanigans could happen, but the amount of like coordinated money it would take to do that would be a big deal. So Steph, it's time to get yelled at. Wait, I want to scroll up here. I saw it. Where was it? Oh, a lot of chatting. I like this. A lot of chatting. Where is it? Daily target hit. That is it. And then late W. So again, if it's part of your rules, take the trade. If your daily goal was hit and you're supposed to leave, then do that. Leave the stream on in like a tab somewhere. You can just mute us just to give us those nice viewer numbers. But yeah, just stick to the rule, stick to the plan, whatever that is. So I've got my XPV and I've got my Bitcoin short, and then I'm just kind of waiting for the market to do something. Both those are a little bit underwater right now. The VZ trade, the Verizon trade that I got off the open there in the automated account was amazing. So that, or in the automated account. So in and out of that one, that was great. And just waiting for more symbols to kind of come by. Starting to look more and more like that was just a pullback to maybe see if we could test that breakout area and dig in. So it's good to see some strength out there for sure.
Yeah, maybe some flagging a little bit lower into your level there. Wouldn't be surprised, but it seems like it's holding. Doesn't seem like it's a complete blow off. So yeah, I'm hanging out. I'm still holding my MSTU, still holding my SQQQ from yesterday too. That hurts. I got in it open and now it's flat. So womp womp.
Yeah.
But it's the hedge. It's the hedge. If the hedge is flat and the long is up 13-14%, I'll take it overnight.
Yeah. So now we wait for Old's End.
So this is a concept I like to think about. I learned it as it's called a mitigation block, where basically you trade, you have a level of equilibrium, it dumps really hard, and then it rips right back to that same level. And so I want to watch what price action acts like there. Like, all right, did we get an off ramp for all the people who got stuck short? Are we was that just a liquidity grab below, and now we're pushing a lot higher? I want to see if there's kind of like I just want to see what happens up there, I guess, or where we are currently, which seems like we had the initial sell off of that, kind of any of the buyers who bought yesterday morning. They're like, oh, thank God. All right, I'm done. And then it seems like people are pretty eager to buy that dip so far. So would not be surprised to see it push higher.
Bitcoin continues, right? Pop through 90,000 there. That's a pretty big deal. Nice psychological whole number through the 90K. And then the next psychological number is there's VZ yelling at me again to re-enter. 90,000, and then of course the next big number is 100,000. Right, trying to get through that big psychological level again. So right, it doesn't feel like the world's coming to end if you're having Bitcoin rip And then you have fart also moving. This is again my fart coin end of the world indicator has definitely been helping out. So that's up 14% today.
Sheesh. What can you say?
Yeah, such a hilarious position.
Gotta love it.
The giveaway has ended. I have asked very nicely to be given the names. I'm sure they're coming at some point. If not, stay tuned to your email. They'll be emailed out to you. They were done over the Fiverr stream. We tried to share them over, just as always. Technical issues are technical issues. They're always going to happen, of course, when we don't want them to. But there will be more giveaways, so make sure you hang out. Right? We know you guys like your free trial account. So yeah, Q's pushing, SPY getting close that day's high. Yeah, everything is just a nice strong day. Nice strong day today.
Love to see
And
it.
nothing. I keep like going over to, well, first of all, right, kind of green all across the board here. Yeah, pretty much every sector I can see, right? Verizon is still down a little bit, although what a recovery from the open on that. We have a couple of these defensive names down a little bit, but pretty much everything else just a sea of green here.
Yeah, you love to see it. I think we got some room. I kind of want to see what we do at 525 if we can get back up there. That's the tariff range equilibrium there, and that's another kind of mitigation block where we just dumped overnight from Friday. So I would not be surprised if we want to go back up there and fill that gap, pick up the stragglers before we make a decision. But kind of my base case so far.
Yeah, and I'm just still in the shop time area, right? I'm just still in the it's a shame, it's not the way obviously we would like to have the market trade, because it's way better and more interesting if we can participate in the moves. But unfortunately, in this market, I don't think that we're going to be able to. I don't think there is a participating necessarily in this move. I think it's more of a, you're going to hang out, you're going to pick your levels, you're going to take your shots, and then all of a sudden, boom, right, a tweet comes out and you're up 5%, you're down 5%. You just kind of hope that you were positioned on the right side. There is a benefit to that, just to always be on the kind of lighter side of things.
Mm.
If, say, for example, you're short, you have a stop loss, we'll take a small loss if things move higher. If you're long and you have a stop loss, we'll make a whole bunch of money. So, the fact that if you're right, you're going to make double or triple what you're wrong is great. It's just kind of frustrating when you are wrong and you hit the button and then you just get stopped out like immediately.
No doubt.
That's the fun, but we are in a Twitter-driven market. We're on a tweet-driven market.
Sorry, I did not mute for the cough, and then I did mute when I tried to talk. Classic. So no, I've been doing really well, just taking small swings on both sides, and just it seems like, hey, if you're wrong, well, I'm hedged, and give it 24 hours and often you'll be right again. There's so much whiplash action, just playing level to level. And then, of course, if we surge through a level, just taking the stop, taking it on the chin, and riding the side of the trade that you do have on. And it's been working really well so far. This is kind of my favorite. I don't want to say favorite market, but it's like I can survive in this if I have to. If this is the game we're playing, Yeah.
Well, yeah, because when the news comes out and things explode, you generally have some time to get involved.
Yeah.
And then ride that wave. It's a very, very news driven, right, momentum driven type of market.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to make sure that you don't get caught on the other side of the momentum, which again means having a stop, having some sort of defined out, and saying this is the moment that I'll get out.
Yeah,
and then you're good to go. So I think I may have gotten some. Let me take a look at what I was just shared with here.
And I'm just going to grab some water real quick.
Sure. Skip. Let me in. Let me in. Hold on, guys. I think I have access now to the email account. The email account's not signed in, and holy smokes, technology is just it's coming for me today, guys. So we are making new highs still. We are almost above the pre-market high from yesterday. The market is grinding higher and higher here. So
yeah, you love to see it. Look at that.
Don't get in the way. Let it go.
Yeah.
And new highs being made, now up 2% on the S&P 500, which is great. Or on 2% on the Qs, 1.7% on the SP 500.
So what is that, up 6% from lows or something? Wild.
Yeah, just these moves are absolutely crazy insane.
Don't really need to trade options when leveraged shares move 10 to 15% overnight every night, you know?
Well, and right, the big thing to kind of always take away and keep in mind to everyone is that, again, this isn't normal. So, this is why it's important, and this is a kind of conversation I wanted to have too, is that position sizing based off of the one easy thing that I think traders could always do to really help their trading is a lot of them will position size based off, I risk 5% on any trade that happens, right? I look at the price and I'm going to subtract 5% of that price, and that's where my stop loss is going to be. And I think in this market, it's really teaching people that makes absolutely no sense in any respect. Because now we're seeing that even the same market, if you were risking, say 0.5% on the SPY before, that was like a day's move. Now 0.5% on the SPY is a couple minutes move. So just showing you that you have to do some sort of dynamic position sizing, and to me, that's like the lowest bar for trade improvement is just to look at what it is you're doing and just say, am I sizing things in a way that makes any sense at all? If so, then great, keep going. If you're just sizing things based off kind of a random percentage or even a random dollar amount, I'm going to risk $1 per share or something per trade. There's a lot more that you can do that I think that is the lowest potential hanging fruit in all of trading is this dynamic position sizing. And right, you can do it a couple ways. One is just by go look at the chart, right? Put my stop. You see a lot of the times, even though I know it's not optimal to put stops at high a day and low a day for these trades, that's where my stop goes. Like, so for BABA, it's the pre-market high up here, and the main reason for that is not because I believe the pre-market high or the pre-market low is a magic number. And in fact, again, it's probably suboptimal to put stops there. The it's just I need a reference point in which to size the trade off of.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, okay, I'm shorting right here. My stop's going right here. I know how wide my stop is, and then I can decide how to size my positions. That if my stop gets hit, I lose whatever dollar amount I'm planning on losing, and that dollar amount should be consistent as well, right?
No doubt. No doubt.
Bucks trade, $1,000 trade, $10,000 trade. That's just a reference of your account at that point. Yeah, the craziest stuff I see is people seem to put kind of random stops out that are just in the middle of a chart, don't really make any sense. So it's that, or the other way that makes sense to do it is to use something like an ATR, which is just a calculation of how wide a candle normally is. Say I'm going to risk 2 ATRs or something to that respects in order to to make sure that I'm doing something that makes sense. But it's a very low hanging fruit to make sure that you're sizing in a way that helps your trading and that you have some way to make sense of. Names. Hello traders, how's it going? What do you think about BTCZ? Is that a short one? Well, I'm not going to short. Yeah, I'm not going to short Bitcoin just because. Again, I don't short things just because they go up, and I don't buy things just because they go down. Right? And that's if we're talking about tips, quote unquote, that's another one that I always think makes a lot of sense. Is just if you want to short something because it's gone up, well, go study trend traders. Go look at the turtle traders of days of yours, or Richard Dennis did these things. Jerry Parker is still around, became a billionaire, doing the exact opposite of that. I'm going to look for something to go up, and I'm going to buy that thing. And I'm going to look for. So yeah, you can take shots, and away you go. The make sure you're doing the thing that makes you have a reason for shorting it, right? You're not just shorting it because it's gone up. You have an indicator or a support resistance level, or some reason to short. I think another thing people get into, and I talked about this a bit yesterday. I was doing StockTwits TV there, and I was trying to figure out why people did this. I was chatting with a lot of other people. I think a lot of people, depending on how they have their chart zoomed, they think the top of the chart is resistance and the bottom of the chart is support. And it's just like a natural human way of doing it, but just kind of, do one of these. Shrink your margins a bit, and all of a sudden it looks completely different. So I look at this and I can say, man, the 110, there's really nothing in our way. So if we get up to 110 and beyond that, again, it's all-time highs. It's very, very hard to ping against all-time highs, right?
And the thing about Bitcoin is, like we're saying, we are seeing the decoupling. So we could see SPY trade sideways or flat while Bitcoin does make that run. That was a little hard for me to envision, but it's a little easier for me to envision than it was 2 days ago. So I was like, that looks like a double bottom and it's flagging, but how could it go up if the market looks so heavy to me? But
yeah,
this is how. If the dollar dies, if there's maybe gold coming down a little bit, if there's other if it's the most appealing asset class, then it'll probably get bought.
Yeah, and I really do think that's what's going on there, is that it is the only option right now. And bonds suck, right? They're moving up with the market. So bonds are horrible. It's not a place to put your money, right? Gold is a little bit too far extended for most people to try to get involved right here, right now. So where do you put your money? And there's just a lot of people say, screw it, Bitcoin at this point, right?
Yeah,
it's the only place that we can go into. And you got to remember, there's always trillions of dollars out there looking for where to put their money, because if they don't have a place to put their money, they're kind of out of a job. Like talked about this yesterday. Yeah. If I'm a hedge fund manager, and I'm charging 2% of assets per year, and then 20% overall of assets, you better be doing something, right? As sad as it is, because quite often sitting in cash is the move. um, you can't do it, right? You're not allowed. You're not allowed to say just, hey, I'm going to sit here in cash and not do anything and wait for the market to get better. Uh,
Yeah.
you're charging me a lot of money, bub, to do stuff. So figure out a place to put my money that's going to make me money. And then you end up getting a lot of A, dumb decisions, but B, a lot of what we're talking about here, where it's like people they just got to put their money somewhere.
Yeah,
They
no
have to.
doubt.
They're sitting on cash. They got to throw it somewhere. Usually, the easy scapegoat is bonds, but for a long time, bonds and stocks have kind of uncorrelated. So
Yeah, and I do
uh,
think that that's really one of the main measures of economic health that I'm really watching, and it's informing my continued downside bias. And I know you're like, biases, get those out of here. But hey, I am who I am, and when I see bonds not working, it's a sign that to me that the market is not done pricing in the potential risk here. Or at least at least there's reason to not be bullish on long-term U.S. equities at the moment. That could change very quickly, like you're saying, with any one headline. So it's definitely just something I'm monitoring day to day, and I will change my bias if I see that stuff start working again, because then it would tell me that, hey, we're not the world's not ending. It's not going to be the Great Depression, yada yada. But I think that even if it's not, the market could trade like it is for another couple weeks. So that's just where my head's at. But I am trying to adapt to. I think you're right to be just trade the system. I think that's the place to be. But I am a human, so I'm still ironing some of that out.
yeah, and well, the only kind of counter I'll give to that is that bonds and that relationship's been broken since like way back here. Right?
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
there's been a lot of famous kind of fund managers out there who've been like, look at right all of 2022, 2023, and then even 2024, you had bonds going down when the market was ripping. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what gets that correlation back. Uh, which is funny because there's been a lot of models that have just broken because you're meant to, if you read the literature, you're meant to go to stocks, right, when the market's good, and then you're meant to go to bonds or short-term T-bills when the market's bad. It's like, well,
Right.
that's
Right. The whole barbell.
that becomes really, really hard to keep up if right the market is kind of you don't have that safe place to go. So, and I know a couple strategies that have been right on picking direction of the market, but have still gotten completely destroyed simply because their whole strategy and they're like ETFs or they're mandated strategies, so they can't change. They're not allowed. But their
Yeah.
whole strategy has been right be in stocks when the stock market displays XYZ characteristics, and then be in bonds when it doesn't. And the problem is, even though it's like, okay, it's getting bearish, move to bonds, and that signal is correct, the instrument used for hedging isn't. So it ends up just kind of all being for naught. So it becomes really, really hard. And again, that's just a long-winded conversation for why we think Bitcoin's going higher. Because again, where else you put your money?
Yeah. No,
Right? Shit's crazy out there.
there's a meme where it's like one guy just is walking along, he steps on a rake, smacks him in the face. The other guy takes a running start off the top of a staircase, rides the rake, and then tries to do a kickflip and ends up just still hits him in the face. So it's like sometimes you get too fancy, you kickflip the rake, and sometimes it's easier to just say, hey, I think SPY is heavy, I think I'm going to short SPY. But it's always nuance to it, and if you're smart enough to navigate that, there's obviously alpha in it. But sometimes it pays to be simple.
Yeah.
First level thinking pays a lot more often than you'd like to admit as a smart, savvy investor.
Well, yeah, and
right?
it also just shows the benefit that we have as retail traders, right? Because it's one of those, if you had created that system that's telling you to go from stocks into bonds and blah blah, and then you go, okay, but that doesn't make any sense right now because Powell's raising interest rates, so bonds are getting killed at the same time stocks are getting killed. You could just make a simple change to your system and say, instead of going into bonds when the market turns risk off, I'm going to go to cash and just sit in cash. Problem is, as soon as you open a fund, that fund has a prospectus associated with it. And if that prospectus reads, when risk off signals happen, we're going to bonds, you go to bonds or you go to jail. Like, you just have to, it becomes a lot more, your hands get kind of tied down a lot more when it comes to those kind of things, because you don't have a choice. This is the mandate. This is this is even the goal in which you're given.
Even outside of mandates too. I mean, just being a small retail trader, you can stick and move. You don't have to, scale into a position and potentially move the market depending on what the asset is. You have that luxury of just getting in and out and riding the momentum caused by the big boys and that institutional flow. So it's not a bad place to be. Everybody says retail is, just born to be exit liquidity. It's like that's a you decision. That's a skill issue. That's something you can work on, and you can have a legitimate edge against these big traders. And that's, I think, something a lot of people don't consider, because it feels like the cards are stacked against you, especially when you're first starting.
Well, and it is hilarious, because as someone who, again, spent 10 years in the hedge fund space, as much as retail is kind of complaining about hedge fund managers having an advantage and blah, blah, they're pushing my stock down with their short, whatever, blah, 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 just all BS stuff. On the other side, hedge fund managers, like I spoke to many of a hedge fund manager that, they're like, I just can't wait to have enough, have a couple $1 million sitting in my brokerage account and quit, because I'll be able to make so much more money when I'm just trading, a relatively small account of say $10 million and under. It's just so much easier to do than to manage, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. Because, you've got mandates that you have to do. You are very big, so you can't just enter and exit positions. There's entire trades that you could be right on and have to skip entirely. You could say, I know this company's complete garbage and it's probably going to go to zero. I just can't short it because it's too small, right? I would short, 10,000 shares, and then they, the market would know that I'm in there, and I would kind of get screwed. And, whereas that 10,000 share short could be a $100,000 gain. And so us as retail people, we're like, oh man, I'd love to do that. That'd be great. And it ends up being a different beast. So as much as retail complains about spooky hedge fund managers complain about retail, because they've got a little bit of an easier life when it comes to a lot of different ways that we trade that we have to kind of appreciate. So
no doubt, good points. So we're kind of, I don't want to say stalling, we're flagging up here, I guess, but interesting slowdown a little bit before the where's the gap? For me, the gap on SPY is up to 527, so we haven't really breached it, reached into it at 524.37. I'd kind of expect it to at least try. And that also, for my ATR system, it looks like we're shooting for between 525.50 and 527.50, something around there. So those are my two stretch targets.
All right, so I have the winners. So I'm going to go. I'm not going to share my screen here with this, because I don't want to dox people's emails. But what we're going to do real quick. So again, we had this really cool contest. I had a lot of fun. There was a lot of smack talk, in which we traded against the guys over at the Fivers. We traded stocks. They traded crypto. Again, had a lot of fun. Again, I'll say they cheated because it'll make me feel better about losing. But it was like 0.01% in the account difference, which is crazy. And I don't think they included commissions. That's why I say that they cheated. But but part of it was that we were going to give away a bunch of different accounts. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start putting names in chat, and we'll talk about the winners and kind of congratulate them for a little bit before getting back to the market, which is fine because I'm looking at it, the market hasn't moved anywhere in 20 minutes anyway. So Good luck if I pronounce all of your names wrong, which I will. I am both dyslexic and bad at reading, so sorry, but we can go through it. So first of all, we've got 7 people who, from the Fiverr side, are winning a 20K bootcamp. And again, we have all the emails here, so these people will get emailed, but just a lot of people are going to see that. So again, these were already picked. Emails are going to be sent out. I've got a message from Michael that accounts are already set up, so these people can kind of go from there. So first, the 7 names that have won a 20K bootcamp. First, we're going to start here with, and I'll just end up showing this always on stream. Burry Coming is the guy's name. So congratulations on a 7 or on a 20K bootcamp account. So the bootcamp accounts are for the Fivers are really, really cool. They're low cost accounts. I think they're 3 stages to pass, but you end up getting a bunch of money for a little bit of a low cost there. So that's one. Chris C here. Here. Oh, and I can just do this in the YouTube chat, so I don't have to spam every. There we go. Chris C is another one from that particular account. Again, the 20K bootcamp. We have Nazar here. It's the full name put in. We have Nazar also winning another 20K account. And Harish, again, apologize, no disrespect intended if I butcher your name, which I will. Harish Kumar, another 20K accounts, a lot of 20K accounts here. Tons and tons of accounts as I realize there are multiple pages to this Google Doc that I have. So Sim, another 20K account, almost on the 20K accounts. Then we get to the little bit of bigger ones here. We have Adita. Again, tell me if I'm doing these horrible or if I'm doing them right, but either way. And Samarth, all 20K accounts. That's 7 20K account winners. So again, congratulations. I see all the emails. That's why I'm not just sharing the screen. I'm not going to share people's emails. So I see all of the emails there. So you should get an email just at some point today delivered right to you. The accounts are getting set up in the back end as well. So that should all happen today or pretty soon after. So now this is the 10K high stakes account. So this is an account. These are actually the accounts that I had when I traded with the Fivers. They are 2-step to pass accounts, and you get a little bit more juice with these guys when it comes to limits of the loss limits. They're a little bit higher on these particular accounts as well. We have Nalene right here. So we've got that's a 10K high stakes account. Get a little bit easier to pass, a little bit less buying power, a little bit more risk, right? So again, I like the bootcamp accounts too, because although they're harder to pass, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because if you're serious in it, having a hard account to pass, I think, is okay. And then, okay, we have here a 20K high stakes account. So this is the big guy. So this is kind of the grand prize from the Fiverr side. And we have Mohammed Yusuf. And we have, so congratulations to you there. Again, emails should be coming through. 20K high stakes account for free. That's a great one. So here on, and that's all on the Fiverr side. So make sure you're paying attention that the Fivers will email you. So make sure you're paying attention to that. These are on the Trade the Pool side. So make sure you're staying tuned to a Trade the Pool email, because it'll be different depending on potentially what you won. And we have Samath Gupta here. These are 5K flex accounts. So these are the accounts. One of these is Mitch is taking right now. These are high stakes or high 5K. Just make sure I got that. Yeah, 5K flex accounts. So these are, $300 one time to pass, and then once you pass, away you go. You got your 5K account. So again, just like the other ones, we have 7 of these. We have Alexandra, I think. maybe. So that's good there. It's another 5K account. We have Alan here with another 5K Flex account. Man, they gave away a lot of accounts here.
That's
So that's
awesome.
great. It's another account for you. And Bakari with another 5K. You're seeing your name again. We have your email. Give us a day or so to make sure the emails are set out. And if you're hearing or seeing your name, you don't get anything, make sure you just come and reach out to us and say, hey, I heard my name on stream and I saw my full name there and I didn't get my account yet. We can go from there. So we have a Kevin going on here. So another 5K account. 2 more for the 5K before we go up to the 25K, the bigger guy. Then we've got 150K to give. So
Wow.
Ella here with another 5K account. And last but not least, Adil right here for 5K account. So now into the 25K flex. So these are the big ones here as well. So it's 25K account. These are, again, one step to pass. The flex accounts, you've got kind of all the time you need to do that as well. And we have Sandeep as well here with another 25K account. So that's two 25K accounts. And then last but not least, we have our 50K winner right here as well. So that's a big account. And the fact that you get all the time in the world to pass it means just that. Take your time, right? You got a free account. You could, in theory, turn that free account into an entire career, right? If you end up passing it slowly and making sure that you're diligent with risk management and all that kind of stuff, you can grow it over time. So congratulations. If you didn't hear your name, I apologize. We can there'll be more, right? There'll be more of those going. So yeah, okay. Sorry, just adding something to my calendar. Time zones got me confused. I thought I had to go for something, but I don't. I don't know. So there are the accounts. Again, if you didn't win, sorry. Please come back. Try again. Again, we'll be giving away more accounts, doing more. I hope we're going to be doing more of those contests. I'm not letting those guys get away with their cheating ways. Also, they went way bigger than we did. So I think if we went back knowing like they were, we were trying to be professional and reasonable and all that kind of stuff. And they were, taking, $400,000 gold positions and swinging them and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Those are all the results. I read both the trade the pool results and the Fibers results there as well. Yes, but they were going crazy. I took a couple trades. I was risking like, it was a $600,000 account. So I was risking like, $500, maybe $1,000 a trade, and then look over at their screen and they're just like, they're risking 4 or 5K a trade. So now that we go back in, we'll go back in probably way more aggressive, and we'll get them this time for sure, man.
Put me in, coach. I'll be the gunslinger.
All right,
you can manage my risk, and I can send it.
Oh, nuts. Well, that was the problem, right? I think is we managed risk. They didn't manage risk. They just went hard. They went for the we want to beat these guys, kind of come hell or high water. We were like, we want to show you how to trade, and they were stone silent the whole time. They were at like the edge of their seat, and like gripping their chair, and we're chatting. We're telling people about double and triple leveraged ETFs because a lot of them were FX traders and they didn't know about that. So it was one of those. Next time we'll get it. I won't say a word. I'll be like super locked in and just going crazy with it. So they get their trophy for now. We'll end up getting it back from them. But those are fun. And I think we're gonna do more just kind of related challenges and community challenges and things, because again, if you can't have fun, why are you doing it, right? So
no, absolutely. Nothing wrong with some healthy competition. It seems like a really fun thing. So I hope I get to tune in next time or participate. Who knows? But either way, I'll be following. I want to see locked in Michael. This is casual Michael.
Yeah, we can. Now that Mitch is gone, we can talk a little smack, right? He's the one. He brought us down here, so we might boot him from the team and bring you in as a No, it was just a lot of fun because it was just a bunch of dudes just trading the market, just talking complete smack. Like, no one was being super serious about it, but I
Yeah,
did
no
want to
problem.
win just because.
We're
By
traders.
then, I'm
We
hoping
don't
that
do this to lose, you know.
yeah, exactly. Well, and by then, I'm hoping we'll have auto trading in, and then I'll bring in some like really weird bots that just like
Ooh,
I'll try to build like some HFT systems or something that just go crazy.
just target their stop losses, you know.
Yeah,
Move the market
specifically
with your
designed for it.
trial account.
Well, and it was one of those, yeah, like one of the guys was long gold. So, and I was coming in, I was looking to short dust.
Oh,
And so I tried to match his position so that, right, my position, because mine's going to move double his. So I'm like, okay, I'll just take whatever your dollar position size is and kind of match it, right?
genius.
So there's some games to play, So yeah, that
Love
was
it.
fun to watch. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. So meanwhile, while we were doing that, since the last, what, 35 minutes, the market has done nothing, which, to be honest, I think is bullish, right? You have a big
Yeah.
opening drive. It's not giving any back. And look at the bottoming tails here in the 5. Every time it sells off a little bit, there's something that's coming in to buy. So I think it's overall bullish that we're not doing anything. It doesn't make for any good trading action right now, but so I've got my my XPEV stopped out. Took a little hit there at highs. My BABA, I'm still in, roughly flat on. That's
Yeah.
what it
Meanwhile,
right?
just Bitcoin's just kind of grinding on up, or at least strategy. MSTR. Let me check the underlying here.
Well, we're at 90,500 on Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's cooking. It's hanging out.
Farcoin is about to hit $1.10.
You love to see it.
It was the leader. It broke out beforehand. But yeah, this is just a hilarious chart. But just think from the lows here, not even from this beginning, from the lows, you're talking 450% just from this swing low. So
That is wild. I wouldn't be surprised to see
technically,
buy push here and follow Bitcoin, by the way. And maybe not quite yet, but it seems like some risk on assets are starting to go. So maybe your Fartcoin doubles again in the next couple hours.
well, that would be fantastic. Well, I am doing that, right? So this would be technically the measured move, right? You take from the low of the base. Some people would go all the way up here and then extend that out. I think that's pretty lofty. But if you take the low of the base, you say that's the top of the cup, and then you expand that from the breakout point. That's how, generally speaking, you find targets in this area. And the that has a target of 420, which how fitting would that be if Farcoin goes all the way up to 420 and then stops there? That would just be, at that point, I'm just buying fully into simulation theory.
I was just about to say, yeah,
right,
if that doesn't prove it.
I'm really just sitting in a pod somewhere with a Ethernet cable plugged into the back of my neck.
Yeah, we're powering some higher powers, Roomba or something. Who knows? Yeah, no, I'm in similar belief. We got a nice squeeze going on in MSTR here. I love it. I'm in a similar belief that I think the market is destined for SPY 420.69. We'll see if it hits, but if so, then I'm buying a lotto ticket or something.
Yeah, why not at this point, right?
Yeah, it's a wild world. Wouldn't discount anything. Yeah, the MSTU trade is cooking. Woo, up almost 18%. Yeah, just broke 18% on the day. So I'm up 15% on my trade or so. It was a little red at close.
Good work. US 30. So here on the equity side of things, we call that the Dow. So we can just look at DIA or YM. It'll be the same thing, right? So the US 30 is just the Dow. I just know that because, again, I traded a little bit of Forex. That's what the Forex side of people look at. So again, it's going to look just overall like the market. I think we're going to shoot for a gap fill and potentially today. Right, we got that. That's 391 on that. You could just do. I could look at the CFDs, just get the number right. Right, so that gap fill that would be like 39,000 or so. The Dow 40,000 is usually a big deal. It's something people look at a lot, but we've sold in and we've dug in, and it looks like we are pushing higher here. So if we look at the overall market, okay, we're trying to close all of these gaps. So on the SPY, that's 526. So there's a lot of different areas that we could fill the gap here. So that's kind of target one, right? If we go to a 30-minute chart, you can see that gap's just right here. From that gap, who knows? Right? Again, I'm just very much in the camp that this massive bar, which was the tariff rollback, we're just going to be farting around in this for some time until another massive bit of news comes out about, I don't know, more tariffs. Who cares? The market didn't even react when the tariffs went up another 100% on China. So, I think it's one of those either news and economic numbers that the tariffs are leaking into the market and starting, or like into the economy and starting to affect things. I think that could be big. Or President Z bought me a really cool gift basket, so we're buds now. Or what would he say about Kim Jong-un that time? Wrote me a love letter. So we're all good now, and we're right back to it. So either one of those things, I think, could move the market pretty dramatically. Until then, what else matters, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're trading a range. We're trading a range of basically big news with the 90-day tariff rollbacks. I would expect it takes news that changes that narrative to break out of that range. Or if not, then that's also telling. If we got the news, we got half of the rollback in the news, still the base tariffs, but that. And then if we fall out the bottom again, well, then I think market wasn't done pricing in the risk of that initial announcement, kind of. At least that's how I'm kind of viewing it.
Yeah.
Again,
so
I'm a big old bear. I got my bear suit on, so Michael.
Well, and you can keep
that. But
perma anything. I just don't like, right?
I
make my. You can see I've got two lines on this chart, right? And those two lines are the only thing I care about when it comes to S&P 500. We're above that candle, the rollback candle, the tariff rollback, and I'm going to be buying more stock. Well, I guess to say, as long as we're below that lower purple line, I'm buying stocks. I bought like 15 different stocks yesterday for my 1 week kind of swing trade hold.
Okay, right.
And then
would you be hedging like a long-term port if we lost your lower purple line and the bottom fell out, or would you be calling just getting out of those new longs?
Just getting out. I'm still mostly in cash. So right now I'm running 4 swing trading systems. So I got my portfolio and I got to kind of split in 4. So let's say you had $1 million portfolio, right? 250,000 is going to each of those. 2 of those 4 setups are just in cash right now. So I'm sitting on, even if I'm fully invested in the shorter term swings, half of my portfolio is pretty much sitting in cash, just waiting for the trend following system to come on. And that's what I would do if we broke the upper line. I'd probably switch the trend following systems back on and say, okay, now it's time to start taking advantage of those, because they're both trend and their relative strength, because there's only so many stocks I can buy. So it always sorts them by relative strength. So these are the best names out there, so buy those. So it'd basically be, if we got a weekly close above there, it'd be like, okay, time to go. Here are the list of 10 names to buy and get involved. And right now they'd probably be names like MicroStrategy, things like that, things that have actually done a really good job of holding up when the market is down. Just because, again, I wouldn't control that. It was just the nature of the beast. Whatever. If the system tells me to buy a Ponzi scheme, I'll even buy a Ponzi scheme, as much as it will hurt to do. But
yeah, I mean, what's the famous quote? Like, if you recognize a bubble, you don't short the bubble, you long the bubble until it pops. So, I mean, sure, it's a dangerous game to some extent, but as long as you know what you're getting into, I mean, heck, you can always scalp it, right? I mean, 18% move today on the 2x leveraged one. That's enough. That's enough meat. That's enough meat right there. I'm down to half my position size, but I am holding a core position for a home run there. And I'd even buy some more if it dipped and held. I think the chart looks that good, honestly. So that's where I'm at. But SPY did fill the gap that or it didn't fill the ultimate gap, but I guess there is it's a gap on the cash session candle, I guess. The low of that previous day.
Technical debate as old as time, right? Is a gap fill the space in the chart, like to the low basically of that gap candle, or is it to the close? And I actually was in a room at a CMT conference once, and there was like 5 old dudes debating this topic, and I just thought it was absolutely hilarious because
that's great.
One of those like, does it really matter? No, it only matters to these very unique group of nerds that has decided to devote their entire life to the study of technical analysis, right?
No doubt. I personally, as one of those unique nerds to some degree or another, I personally think it's about the actual gap on the chart. I think that holds a little more weight. I think that there are definitely algos or humans trading off of both levels, so they're both notable. But I'm a big fan of like the whole paint roller metaphor. You know, if you move the paint roller down too fast, you'll get an air bubble, and the market really loves to just whip it back up and cover that air bubble and just coat it both ways, right? So, I mean, you know, that's my thesis. But you know, if you have a different thesis, you're probably watching for that, and then you get the confirmation bias. So it could be both. Who knows? I think it's probably both.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those. Again, I've been working on strategies because ever since I started talking about them, it's interesting to me to potentially come up with a strategy to fade gaps. I have yet to be able to test something that I think is at all any good. So, you know, I've yet to see the merit of filling gaps in anything but day trades. I have noticed, again, with the testing I've done, the systems I've built, that filling gaps from a day trading standpoint is interesting. You get a gap up or a gap down, and you take the other side of that trade. From a swing trading standpoint, like looking at gaps that happened a while ago, I've yet to find any concrete data that gap fills do anything. One of those until I can either disprove it or prove it the way I like. I just kind of default to the old school technicians that say, yeah, it is something to watch.
I can totally see why maybe there isn't a clear defined edge on swing trading for the gap fills, because to me it's like the gap fill is the target, you know. So like it's like, okay, there's a magnet pulling us up there, and then once it gets there, maybe price action changes characteristics and it drops. Maybe a seller steps in and says, okay, I got out break even, or as before I was like, you know, I woke up in the morning gap down on, you know. So maybe that's the change in characteristic. Maybe it just continues and goes higher because it was just a liquidity grab lower the whole time. So it would make sense that there's less of a defined edge out of the gap than into the gap, for me at least. That's how.
Well, so what I did to test it is I basically just went back 30 years and I said, okay, any gap over, I think I did 1 ATR. So whatever the stock normally moves in a day, any gap bigger than that, short it with no stop loss, no time stop, and just target the gap fill. Because then I can just simply run a test and say, how many times does that target get fit? How many times does the gap get filled? And it was like worse than a coin flip. I think it was like 30-something% of the time the gap's filled. And then so 70-something% of the time the gap didn't fill, which the beauty of, you know, the way I look at this market in a very kind of quantitative, scientific way is that, you know, that I made a note on all the strategies I need to test. It's like, well, if that's true, then maybe the other way makes sense. But so now I need to just start going through and saying, okay, well, what percentage, as opposed to looking for an absolute gap fill, how many times does it retrace 50% of the gap? How many times does it trace, you know, 30% of the gap? Like all these different names. But yeah, I still have more testing to do. But that's what I spend my time doing now that my trading is automated. Because I can spend my time doing what I think is cool stuff like that, as opposed to I don't have to guess, right? I don't have to pontificate. I can just go and test, right? So.
No, absolutely. I took a little bit more of my MSTR trade off. I think it still looks fine, especially for a swing, but I'm just keeping people posted.
Yeah,
posting a little top wick, and you when you move 18% on the day, you want to lock some of that in before you turn around and half of it's gone. But I think it's a very stable chart overall. So
FMTO with a 1 to 500 stock. That is insane. So that must have no float right now until they start selling to users, right? They start to retail, but that's insane.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, they've got no float at all anymore.
Wild West. I would have heart palpitations trading something like that.
I think there needs to be a minimum float rule. I just think that's like, because they have the $1, you have to be over $1 to be listed on the exchange. Yeah. I think they need to put in a minimum float rule as well. Now, that's to protect investors. The people who trade micro low float stocks are not going to like that. But when you see a stock come on the market, it's got like 50,000 shares in the float. The whole company's worth like $10 and a ham sandwich. Like, what are you doing as a publicly traded name? You shouldn't be. So yeah, over $1 and float over X, a couple million shares, 10 million shares, or something like that. And stop these games too, as well. Like if your company sucks and can't get those requirements in, then go to the pink sheets, hang out on the pink sheets so you sort your shit out. Like, it should be a nice to have to be listed on a proper exchange, not like a must have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think I'm definitely in favor of most regulatory policies that protect the consumer, because I think that's an area where we are one of the few areas where we're behind the EU, for example, or other areas where they do protect the consumer a lot more. And maybe there is downsides, like especially if you're a small cap investor or small cap trader, but overall I don't think it hurts to err on the side of protecting people who are just like you and me. Well, maybe not as knowledgeable, but all the more reason to protect them, I guess.
Well, yeah, there's dumb rules like the pattern day trade rule. I think it's so stupid. The fact that you can like YOLO 0DT options, but they're like, oh no, if you want to get in and out of the stock on the same day, we're going to penalize for you. I'm like, I think that's.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like it's protecting institutions, not retail, right? That's just padding their books. In the same vein, how you can do a 0DT call, but you can't do a call spread. You can't limit your risk until you pass a bunch of arbitrary hoops. That annoys me too. It's like if I'm playing with leverage, let me have all the tools in the toolbox. If I mess up with that, well, then you just make more money anyway. But give me a shot, let me play the game.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. But Canada doesn't have pattern day trader rule. For that specific reason. They looked at it and they're like, that doesn't help, right? People want to gamble. There's a billion ways to do it. So
exactly
to let them go, right? So I'm saying the trade the pool desktop is slow. You'll have to reach out to support for that. I haven't noticed that. Again, if you are, I apologize. I know there was an update for Trader Evolution recently, so that could be causing a little bit of problems. But we can't do anything about that here. So reach out to the support chat and we'll get to you there. I haven't noticed, again, personally. I don't know if maybe a restart or something would help, but again, I just use the order entry criteria of it. I don't use like a whole bunch of charting or across a bunch of monitors or something like that. So, so maybe they can roll you back to another version, or maybe there's a new version on its way that would fix an error if it comes out. I think there should be guidelines for other rules like the PDT. Yeah, the PDT rules is dumb. It makes no sense to me. It's just one of those things that I think is kind of on the books And just there's like a lot of other things to fix right now, so just nobody cares about that particular issue. I think is kind of the best way to put it, because
Yeah.
like who's gonna die on the sword of that? And the fact that it's never been adjusted for inflation makes me think that really nobody cares about it. Right? It was $25,000 when it started, and it's $25,000 now, like 30 some odd years later, or I think it was the year 2000 that it went, so probably 25 years later.
So
like
arbitrary.
25,000. Yeah, 25K then was probably, I don't know, near 100K now. So yeah, the fact that no one's bothered to update it, yeah, I think is a bit of a deal. So, but again, same. We just in Canada, we took a look at it. We said, yeah, this doesn't help. Doesn't help people. So let's just ignore it. Same with payment for order flow, right? We banned payment for order flow because we're like that doesn't do what people think it does. The market continues to grind higher, right? Look at again every bottoming tail here, bottoming tail, push up, bottoming tail, push up, bottoming tail, over and over and over again. So far, right? This could change in the afternoon. I could be something like yesterday, right? Always note that whatever happens in the morning isn't what has to happen all day. This thing sold off all day and just had this massive rally into the close. So definitely watch that as well when we get into that time frame. That all right, is the other thing going to happen where we just kind of grind higher all day, and there's some news in the close. But so far there's no reason I could see to kind of get in that and push on any of those, right? To go through and say, hey, it's yeah, let's really buy it here. Well, it's up a little bit too much, and then from a day trading point of view, and then I don't think it makes sense to sell here as well, just because it's up. So for me, this is you got some trades, great, keep them on, manage your risk, do whatever you need to do. You don't have some trades, you got to wait for something, right? A base or a pullback or something. I just don't see anything that's interesting.
One that's interesting for me is GGAL. It's a financial group out of Brazil, and it looks like it's just starting to break out here.
GGAL?
Yeah, GGAL. Daily chart's looking pretty hot to me.
Yeah, it held that gap up.
Yeah, big flow on May 16th, 70 calls. I'm trying to get filled at $1.50, but they're just this is a small chain, so they're playing games. I'll wait for it to come to me, hopefully. But interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those like looking at this feels, and that's why I always bring out these measuring tools now, is it feels like it's been just a boring, grindy day, but from low to high, that's all right, over 1% move, and we gapped up 1.5% to get there.
Yeah,
and it's like, what do you do at that? Like, it feels like nothing.
Yep, feels bad, but I think you're probably right.
Okay, I need to actually dip here. Do you mind hitting the end stream button when all is said and done? I think I got my time zones missed off. Just in the top corner there.
I'm not logged in, so I'm not able to do that, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to end this just 1 minute early here. Again, I apologize. I think I got my time zones crossed, but thank you all for coming out. And as always, I'll see you guys tomorrow.